Welcome, everyone. We've hit the top of the hour, so I like to start on time. Time management is one of my passions, or more to the point, how we make use of our time. Today, we're going to be looking at webinar 8 in the series, looking at Cogs 7 of our 7 performance management cogs. This one looking at rewarding and recognizing performance. I see we've got some new joiners. So you won't have seen the original coverage of the model. So just do a very quick recap for everyone. So first of all, what is performance? Of course, it's results. It's what you pay people to produce, but not at any price. The how matters. And we've seen over the last decade, multiple organizations produce significant results in terms of sales revenue, etc., but still struggle because they didn't pay attention to how things were done. Those of you, I'm sure, who go shopping will notice the difference between different stores in how you're treated. And of course, we live in an ever-changing world. Never before, I don't think, have we seen such rapid change as AI is bringing us. So, of course, now we need individuals who are going to grow and develop, not just so that they can cope with the current pressures, but also so that they're ready to handle the challenges that come in subsequent periods. So performance ultimately is 3 things. It's what we get people to produce. It's how we want them to produce it. And that can be issues around interactions, communication. It can also be compliance with legislation, regulations, standard operating procedures, etc. And of course, growth and development of technical skills, but also one of the biggest challenges that faces many organizations is that transition when they promote people from being a really good X to being a people manager. Developing those leadership and management skills is still a challenge for many organizations. And as we've seen during particularly the COVID period, the real measure of the ability of an organization to be successful and sustainably so comes down to the caliber of its management. And of course, what we need is those things in the appropriate mix. As we move up through an organization and in seniority, interestingly, what we produce becomes of paramount importance. And we see this when frequently shareholder meetings replace CEOs, etc. But of course, at the lower levels or levels with less competency or less complexity in their roles, how they go about the job can be critically important. And many organizations forget that the receptionist is the one person in the company who typically sees everybody who comes in and everybody who goes out. So how they handle themselves is critically important for the organization's reputation. And of course, growth varies. We're now seeing a period where even senior people are having to develop rapidly AI skills simply because of the impact that that's having on the business. And what we all know is performance management is a question, what is it people want? What we now know from research that's been conducted over the last few years is people look for 4 things. They look for clarity of expectations, clarity of how their work is perceived. They want to have that regular update, specificity, and feedback. They also want assurance. Can we assure them that AI will not replace their jobs? Of course we can't. But what we can assure them is we'll do everything possible to ensure that they have continued career with us and continued opportunities to develop. What they want is recognition. Research that I did with Dr. Marciano when we wrote the book Super Teams, we discovered that recognition is a primary differentiator between good teams and teams that excel. Recognition builds motivation, and we'll come back to that in a little while. And then they want empathy. And we're seeing a demand for empathy increase. We have an increasing population of people suffering from ill health of a mental nature, stress and various other forms of complexity. And many of those are looking for us to demonstrate empathy. And of course, legislation is increasingly putting us under pressure to do that. All of those things impact directly on how we approach performance management. And ultimately, what is performance management? It's a set of processes. It's how we go about things. It's how we influence performance of individuals, what they produce, how they produce it, and how they develop. And what we're ultimately looking for in any organization is we want to improve our results, we want to improve our reputation, and we want to improve our capability so that we can cope with increased demands and produce better performance in the future. And as we shared on the previous sessions, there are 7 components in any organization's performance management system, whether they design these or not. Setting direction. What is the process by which people discover what matters, where the organization's trying to go, what its mission, its values, and its strategy are? There's something that defines roles. Now, those roles may be well defined using job descriptions. They may be defined by word of mouth passing from one to another. But no matter what your organization, individuals will understand what their role is, and that might not be what you think it should be. And then there's the process for planning and aligning. We're coming out of the frantic period where January caught us all by surprise, and we've probably been setting goals and objectives. But how do we work with people to ensure that they are clear and assured about what's expected of them, how they should go about what they do, and the development they should produce? And then monitoring and measuring. Many organizations struggle with achieving rolling monitors and measures, but it's critically important that we accumulate evidence so that we can work out whether we're on track, whether we need to redirect, and ultimately to inform our assessments and evaluations later. And then enabling and enhancing, the primary cog in the performance management wheel. What do we do as managers and peers to influence performance? What do we do to enable it? And goal setting is a wonderful thing, but goal setting very rarely drives performance up. We've just recently seen the indoor athletics in Poland. And I doubt if any one of those athletes who achieved a new record achieved it simply because they aimed at it. What they will have done is they will have spent hours and hours and days and weeks and months reviewing their performance, looking at the evidence of what they've achieved, readjusting, making minor adjustments to improve their overall results. And then assessing and evaluating. In many organizations, we get managers to produce assessments at the end of a performance period, but because they're based on poor quality data, we frequently have to recalibrate them using calibration meetings. We need to work within organizations to ensure that our monitoring and measuring processes throughout the year produce objective assessments. The evaluation then should only take account of context, circumstances that changed that weren't foreseen at the beginning of the year. And ultimately, of course, we come to rewarding and recognizing, which is the topic of our session today. So what we're going to be looking at is rewarding and recognizing from a perspective of performance management. And what I mean there is reward is a very complex subject, as many of you will appreciate. But I'm looking at what can we do that will actually influence performance. And I'm going to focus specifically on that aspect. So a rhetorical question for all of you. What do your formal processes reward or recognize? Do they reward results? Do they reward growth? If people improve, do they get recognition? Do they get reward for that? Or is their remuneration tied exclusively to what they produce? Do you reward the cost of living? In many organizations, the assumption is that the company should pay for a cost of living increase linked directly to inflation. Other organizations say, why would we do that? Inflation can occur, but not in our market.